The human vessel descended slowly through the violet clouds of the gas giant's orbit. Below, the alien planet shimmered like a jewel, its crystalline structures catching the pale light of two suns. From the observation deck, Kale, the young explorer from Earth, pressed his hands against the cool glass, marveling at the city suspended on floating islands, connected by bridges of light. "This is unbelievable," he whispered, almost to himself. Even after years of training, years of traveling through stars and systems, nothing had prepared him for the sight of this world. The alien capital pulsed with an energy he could almost feel through his bones, a quiet hum that resonated with his own heartbeat. The landing platform opened with a hiss, revealing the palace in all its grandeur. Towers of opalescent crystal reached toward the sky, and waterfalls of liquid light flowed along terraces that seemed to float midair. He stepped out carefully, feeling the soft glow of the planet's energy beneath his boots. The air smelled faintly metallic and sweet, carrying a subtle warmth that reminded him of home, though it was unlike anything Earth had ever offered. He was not here as a tourist. Kale had been sent on a diplomatic mission. Earth had opened tentative communications with this civilization, and he was chosen as an envoy. The stakes were high. And yet, even as his mind reminded him of his duties, he could not tear his eyes away from the palace, as if it held a secret that was waiting for him alone. Inside the palace, the corridors stretched endlessly. The walls shimmered with the colors of shifting light, reflecting patterns that Kale could not comprehend. The attendants who passed him did so with elegant movements, their skin like polished silver and eyes that glowed faintly with an inner light. None spoke as he walked, their gazes polite but distant. It was clear that the human presence was unusual, even unsettling. And then he saw her. The princess stood at the top of a grand staircase, her form framed by arches of glowing crystal. She was taller than Kale expected, her posture perfect, regal. Her hair fell like liquid night over her shoulders, and her eyes, those eyes, were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were wide and luminous, shifting between shades of violet and blue as if reflecting distant galaxies. Kale froze. Something in her gaze pierced him, a sudden awareness that he was not simply a visitor. She did not move, she did not blink. Her entire being seemed to hesitate as though caught between two worlds. For a moment he thought she had not noticed him. Then slowly her eyes focused and Kale felt a tremor of understanding, or was it fear, pass through him. She froze entirely, her hands suspended midair as if she had reached for something unseen. The attendants behind her whispered, a soft murmur that drifted through the hall like wind through reeds. Kale could not make out the words, but the tone carried urgency, a mixture of awe and concern. He stepped forward, unsure whether to bow or to speak. "Princess," he said cautiously, "I am Kale from Earth." She remained still, silent, and Kale felt an uncomfortable weight pressing against his chest. It was as if the air itself had thickened, and the hum of the palace seemed to deepen into a low vibration that resonated with something ancient inside him. One of the attendants approached him, a graceful figure with eyes of molten silver. "Do not speak yet," she said softly in a language he understood only because of the universal translator embedded in his calm. "She has seen you before she should have. You must wait. She is bound by a vision, a warning that cannot be ignored. Your presence awakens it." A shiver ran down his spine. He wanted to reach out to help her, but something told him he must not. She was not just a person. She was a force, a presence that carried weight beyond comprehension. Finally, the princess spoke, though her voice was a mere whisper that floated through the air like smoke. Kale had to lean in to hear her. You should not be here. I mean no harm." Suddenly, the floor beneath the princess shimmered, a subtle ripple of light that pulsed from her feet upward. Kale realized with a jolt that this was no ordinary palace, no ordinary princess. Energy, the kind that bent reality and sang with power, flowed from her in waves. And the moment his eyes met hers again, he felt something in himself awaken. He did not understand it yet, but somewhere deep within, he sensed a connection, fragile yet undeniable. And in that instant, the princess's frozen gaze softened, not entirely, but just enough to hint at the person behind the legend, the royalty behind the vision. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice trembling now, a sound that seemed almost human. Kale nodded, though he did not fully understand. "Yes," he admitted, "something calls us together." The attendants gasped, and Kale realized this was not simply a gesture of fear. It was a warning, a response to something larger than either of them. Before he could react, the princess's knees gave way. She collapsed to the floor, not fully unconscious, but locked in a frozen state, her body unmoving except for the faint pulse of energy around her. Kale rushed to her side, panic rising in his chest. "Princess!" he called, kneeling beside her. His hands hovered just above her, unsure if touching her would break or worsen the effect. The energy around her shimmered and hummed, responding to his presence, and Kale felt an odd warmth flow into him. It was as if the palace itself was testing him, measuring his intent. The attendants moved quickly, forming a circle around them, murmuring in the alien tongue. One stepped forward, speaking directly to Kale. "She sees what you cannot yet see. Do not try to force it. Only your presence can guide her back. Fear will only make the energy stronger. Wait and let her choose to awaken." Minutes or perhaps hours passed. Time felt meaningless in the presence of such power. And then, ever so slightly, the princess's hand twitched. A single finger moved, brushing against the floor as if testing her freedom. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment, Kale saw recognition and fear intertwined, a reflection of the same uncertainty he felt in himself. "You," she whispered again, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and confusion. "You exist." He focused solely on the princess, on the intensity of her gaze, on the strange pull that drew him closer to a truth he could not yet name. And in that moment, as the crystalline light of the palace shimmered around them, Kale understood. Something in this world, in this princess, had changed forever. And the journey that had begun as a simple mission of diplomacy was about to become something far more profound, something that would challenge everything he thought he knew about fate, courage, and the nature of life itself. The princess shivered slightly, as if awakening from a deep sleep that had lasted centuries. Her gaze met his fully now, no longer frozen, but still cautious, wary, and filled with questions that only he could answer. And Kale knew with an unshakable certainty that nothing in his life would ever be the same. Somewhere deep in the palace, the hum of energy shifted, carrying a warning that only time would reveal. The human and the princess were bound now, their fates intertwined, though neither fully understood why. And far above them, the twin suns of the alien world set, casting a silver and violet glow across the city. The adventure had only just begun. The palace felt different now. Even though the human had only been inside for a few hours, Kale sensed a shift in its energy. The corridors no longer seemed merely grand. They pulsed with purpose, as if the walls themselves were alive, aware of his presence. Every step he took echoed softly against the crystalline floors, carrying the weight of something ancient, something that had waited centuries for this moment. The princess remained in her private chamber, surrounded by attendants who moved with delicate precision, their whispers almost lost in the hum of the palace's energy. Kale had been allowed only brief glimpses of her, and each time her eyes froze upon meeting his. She was calm now, seated on a floating platform of light that shimmered beneath her like water. But Kale could see the tension in her posture, the subtle way her hands twitched, betraying the battle between fear and something else, curiosity, perhaps, or recognition. The silver-eyed attendant who had spoken to him before approached once more. Her voice was softer this time, less formal, almost apologetic. "You must understand," she said. "The princess is bound by a curse older than the palace itself. It is tied to a vision, one that names you specifically, though we do not know why. Some forces were never meant to meet, yet they have. You awaken her fate. Perhaps that is why. You were never meant to be here," she said, her words carefully measured. "And yet you are. That terrifies me. Understanding is dangerous. It binds you before you even know the price. And if the vision comes true, my life and the life of this planet will be changed forever. If it overwhelms me, everything, the palace, the city, the very balance of this place could be lost. Do you know what it means to face a curse older than memory? To feel it coil around your mind and heart, whispering truths you do not yet understand. There is a place where the curse can be studied," she explained. "The archives of the temple hold knowledge older than the first king of this world. There you may begin to understand what you face." Crystals embedded in the stone pulsed faintly, casting prismatic light across the corridors. Each step he took seemed to echo farther than it should, and he felt an unshakable sensation that he was being watched, not by eyes, but by the very essence of the palace. At last, they entered a vast chamber, its ceilings impossibly high, lined with shelves of glowing scrolls and crystal tablets. In the center, a circular platform hovered, suspended by energy that radiated warmth and light. It was quiet, almost too quiet, as if the chamber itself waited for permission to speak. "This is the Hall of Records," the attendant explained. Here lies the knowledge of all who have ruled and lived under the curse. Many have tried to understand it, and many have failed. Few have left without being changed. He had expected to learn to observe, but he had never anticipated that he might be a key. The princess's voice floated to him from the upper chamber. "Do not presume to understand me yet," she said, though it carried no anger, only caution. "You are a stranger to this world. You carry the light of your own world, but this is not your home. And yet," she trailed off, her words unfinished. The attendant nodded to him. "Go slowly. Approach her when you are ready. Let your empathy guide you. The curse responds to intent and emotion. Fear will only strengthen it." It was not merely a spell or a binding. It was a living memory, a force that twisted perception, bound destiny, and reacted to those it touched. He read of past princesses, each one frozen by visions of the same human figure who had yet to appear. Each record spoke of hesitation, fear, and the strange bond that grew between the human and the cursed princess. It was as if history itself waited for him to step into its pages. Finally, he was ready. He ascended to her chamber, the floating platform glowing softly beneath her as she looked down at him. For a long moment they simply regarded each other, the hum of energy rising around them, echoing their silent connection. "You feel it too," she whispered, and Kale nodded. "I do," he said. "Something calls us together. I don't understand it, but I know it's real. I can try to understand you, the curse, this world, everything." He was a participant in something ancient, something that had waited centuries for this precise moment. Before he could respond, the platform beneath her shimmered and rippled with energy. A low hum filled the chamber, and Kale felt the air thicken around him. The princess stiffened, her eyes wide with fear and awe. "The visions, they are coming," she whispered. "And you are at the center of them." She was not just royalty, not just a symbol. She was a person, caught in the tides of a destiny that was older than the stars themselves. "I do not know if you can survive what comes next," she said softly. "But perhaps you are the one who can guide me back." The princess shivered, and Kale felt the subtle shift in her energy, the first hint that she might awaken further. But then a sudden pulse of light shot through the chamber, and the attendant's voice rang out, urgent and trembling. He had thought the curse itself was the greatest danger, but now he realized that other forces, shadowed and unknown, were watching, waiting, and perhaps seeking to exploit the connection he shared with the princess. Her eyes met his fully now, no longer frozen, filled with fear, curiosity, and a spark of hope. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Whatever comes, stay with me." The adventure had deepened, the curse had revealed itself, and the princess, once frozen, was now awakening, her destiny entangled with Kale's in ways neither of them could yet comprehend. And far above, the alien city glowed in twin sunlight, serene yet trembling with the promise of revelations that would change everything. The journey to the temple began at dawn. Twin suns rose slowly above the floating city, casting a violet and silver glow across the crystalline towers. Kale and the princess walked together, the soft hum of energy surrounding them like a living companion. Every step felt weighted with destiny, each moment charged with anticipation. The princess led the way, her movements precise yet cautious. Kale followed, matching his pace, though he was keenly aware of the subtle tension in her posture. She did not speak much, only occasional instructions in her melodic tongue that his translator struggled to render fully. But Kale could feel her intent, her awareness, the unspoken rhythm guiding them through the shifting pathways of the palace and toward the floating bridges that connected the islands. "This way," she said finally, pointing toward a bridge suspended in midair, its surface glowing faintly underfoot. "The temple is not far. But the path, it is not safe for those unprepared." Kale could feel the energy beneath him vibrating gently, humming like a heartbeat, and he wondered if the palace itself was testing them. "I can handle it," Kale said, though he could not hide the hint of awe in his voice. "Lead the way, and I will follow." "Do not presume it will be simple," she said softly. "The temple tests not the body alone, but the mind and the heart." Kale noticed small details, the way her hand brushed against the edge of the glowing railing, the faint tremor in her shoulders, the quickened pulse of energy around her. She was regal and powerful, yet human in her fear, and that realization made him both anxious and protective. At the far side, the bridge ended at a narrow pathway leading to the base of a mountain that floated above a lake of liquid light. The temple itself rested at the summit, a structure of crystal and metal, glowing faintly from within. Its design was unlike anything Kale had seen, a perfect blend of elegance and strength, beauty and purpose. "The temple," she said, her voice quieter now, almost reverent. "It was built to contain the heart of the star, the energy that binds this planet, its people, and the curse. To enter it is to face truths few can bear. It is the echo of every choice ever made here, every path ever taken. It waits for the one it calls, shaping destiny, and now it waits for us." The princess occasionally extended her hand, guiding him through invisible currents, keeping him safe from sudden ripples of force that surged unpredictably. Kale noticed how the energy seemed to respond to her intent, calm and steady in her presence, chaotic when she hesitated. "This energy," he said, eyes wide, "it's alive, almost like it has a mind of its own. And it waits for those who seek it with honesty of heart." He felt the weight of anticipation, the presence of something older than any memory he had known. The princess paused. "Once we enter, there is no turning back. You must face it willingly." The temple's interior was vast and open, the ceilings high above, carved with intricate patterns that shimmered with faint light. Crystalline structures rose like stalagmites from the floor, channeling energy in a gentle, rhythmic pulse. The air was warm, tinged with the scent of ozone and something faintly sweet, like flowers blooming under sunlight. At the center of the chamber hovered a platform of light, suspended by swirling currents of energy. Kale could see faint images flickering in its glow, memories of the past, echoes of events long ago, fragments of lives intertwined with the curse. The princess stepped forward, her gaze focused on the platform. "The heart of the star," she whispered. "It will show you truths and it will demand honesty. You must not falter." And then he saw himself, not fully but as a reflection, standing beside her in ways he did not understand, connected across time and space. "The curse," he whispered. "It's tied to all this, all these lives. And now you are part of it. So this is not just about me understanding you. It's about us together." He had faced danger before, navigated alien worlds and political tensions, yet nothing had prepared him for this. The weight of destiny, the pull of the curse, the connection to a princess whose fate rested as much on his choices as her own. The platform of light pulsed, and the chamber seemed to breathe. The princess stepped onto it first, her form glowing as the energy wrapped around her like a living shroud. Kale hesitated, then followed, feeling the energy rise to meet him. Images flooded his mind, visions of the princess frozen in mid-motion, of a human he did not recognize yet somehow knew, of cities burning and healing, of choices that could shatter or restore balance. He saw her loneliness, her longing for freedom, her fear of the curse consuming her entirely. And amidst it all, he saw himself, not as an observer but as a participant, a presence that could either anchor her or tip the balance. "Do you see it?" the princess asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Kale nodded. "I see a path, but it's unclear. I don't know if I can, if I'm enough." The energy around them pulsed faster, reacting to their combined intent, their synchronized breaths, their mutual trust. Kale felt a warmth spread through him, an unshakable sense that they were no longer alone, no longer a human and an alien separated by species, history, or destiny. They were partners, bound by something older than memory, something that had waited for this exact convergence. Suddenly, a pulse of energy shot upward, bright and blinding. Kale felt himself lifted slightly off the platform, as if the temple itself were evaluating him. The princess's grip on his hand tightened, grounding him, keeping him tethered to the present. Visions swirled faster, memories, possibilities, choices. And amidst the chaos, Kale glimpsed something he did not understand, a shadowed figure watching, waiting, a force beyond the curse itself. The energy of the temple seemed to shiver at its presence, warning them of unknown dangers yet to come. The princess leaned close, her forehead brushing his shoulder. "Do not fear," she whispered. "Whatever comes, we face it together. That is all that matters." And as the energy of the heart of the star swirled around them, Kale realized something profound. This journey was no longer just about understanding the curse. It was about trust, courage, and the bond forming between him and the princess, an unspoken connection that would shape not only their fates but the fate of the world itself. The chamber pulsed one last time, brighter than ever, and then the visions began to take shape into something tangible. Kale and the princess both stepped forward, ready to face whatever the heart of the star would reveal. But as the first image solidified, a dark force lurking beyond the temple, its eyes fixed on them both, Kale understood that the true test had only just begun. And far above, the twin suns continued their ascent, bathing the floating city in light that shimmered like hope and warning. The temple trembled with a power Kale had never felt before. The energy of the heart of the star surged, flowing around the chamber like a living river of light. The shadows from the visions lingered at the edges, watching, waiting. Kale gripped the princess's hand, the warmth of her touch anchoring him amidst the chaos. "Stay close," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "The energy grows stronger when fear rises. If you falter even for a moment—" Her words trailed off, leaving the threat unspoken but understood. Kale nodded, focusing on her presence. He had learned that the energy responded not just to actions but to intent. Fear, doubt, hesitation, these amplified the power of the curse. Courage, trust, connection, these could shape it, perhaps even control it. A pulse of light erupted from the center of the platform, blinding in its intensity. Kale shielded his eyes, feeling the force push against him. The princess's grip tightened, pulling him forward as if to steady him. The visions flared, more vivid now, showing the city below and the floating bridges bending under a surge of energy that threatened to tear them apart. "The curse," Kale said, voice trembling, "it's spreading to the city. If I lose control—" She let out a sharp breath, forcing herself to calm, focusing her thoughts on Kale. "Focus on me. Only together can we stabilize it." Slowly, the pulse of the energy lessened, the tremors in the temple diminishing. The visions softened, though shadows still lingered, watching. A soft murmur of voices echoed through the chamber, attendants calling, energy reacting, warnings whispered in the alien tongue. Kale opened his eyes and saw the princess's face pale but determined. "We must go to the heart itself," she said. "The core. That is where the curse anchors its power." The princess moved with precision, guiding him past unstable areas, her eyes never leaving the path. Finally, they reached the inner sanctum, the heart of the star. The chamber was vast, filled with an energy so intense that the air shimmered and danced like liquid light. At its center floated a sphere of pure radiance, glowing with pulses of violet, silver, and gold. Around it swirled shadows, the remnants of the visions watching their approach. "This is it," the princess whispered. "The source, all that I am, all that the curse is, it comes from this core. We must synchronize our intent. The core reacts to unity. Alone, you cannot withstand it." "You feel it, don't you?" the princess asked. "The pull, the weight of everything." Light and shadow collided around them, forming shapes from the visions, fragments of past events, warnings, possibilities. Kale could see the danger, the destruction that could come if they failed. But he also saw hope, the potential to break the curse and heal the princess, her people, and the city below. Suddenly, a surge of dark energy erupted from the edges of the chamber. The shadows moved with purpose now, forming a figure that Kale could not fully see, only sense. Its presence was cold and commanding, a force beyond the curse itself, waiting for them to falter. Kale stepped closer to the princess, gripping her hand tightly. "Do you see that?" he whispered. She nodded, her eyes narrowing. "The visions, they warned me, but I did not understand. This force, it wants to use the curse for its own purpose. It seeks control, and it knows we are the key." The princess drew a deep breath. "Yes, together." Kale felt the weight of the visions, the fragments of the curse pressing into his mind. He saw the princess frozen in countless forms, trapped in fear, bound by duty, longing for freedom. And amidst it all, he saw himself, not as an outsider, but as a participant, a force that could anchor her or unravel everything. The princess's voice broke through his thoughts. "Focus, Kale. We can do this." Kale opened his eyes and saw the princess standing taller, her energy steady, her fear replaced with determination. He felt her strength flowing into him, guiding him, anchoring him. Together they formed a single presence, a unity that neither the curse nor the shadow could fully resist. The core pulsed one final time, brighter than ever, and then settled into a steady glow. The shadows dispersed, retreating to the edges of the chamber. The energy of the temple hummed calmly, the surge of chaos quelled, at least for now. Kale exhaled, feeling the tension in his body ease slightly. "We did it," he said softly. The princess looked at him, a faint smile breaking through her usual composure. "For now," she said, "the curse is quieter, but it is not gone. We have only begun to understand it." The princess extended her hand, brushing it against his arm in a gesture of reassurance. "You have done well," she said softly. "You have faced what few could, and yet there is more to come." Her eyes softened, and for the first time Kale saw her not just as a princess or a figure of legend, but as someone who trusted him, who relied on him. The bond they shared had deepened beyond words, beyond species, beyond fear. It was a connection forged in courage, trust, and shared destiny. As they descended from the inner sanctum, the city below shimmered in the light of the twin suns, its structures trembling slightly from the earlier surge of the curse. Kale knew that the threat was not fully gone. The shadowed force remained, and the curse would continue to test them. But for the first time, he felt hope. Together, he and the princess could face whatever came next. Together, they could unravel the mysteries of the curse, confront the forces that sought to manipulate it, and protect the world that had become their responsibility. The palace corridors stretched ahead, calm yet humming with quiet energy. Kale walked beside the princess, feeling her presence steady him, guide him, and anchor him. He had entered this world as an outsider, a visitor from another planet. Now he was a part of something larger, something ancient and powerful, something that would shape the destinies of many. And as the twin suns set, casting violet and silver light across the floating city, Kale realized one truth that was as clear as it was unshakable. The adventure had only just begun, and whatever came next, he would face it with the princess at his side. But somewhere deep in the shadows beyond the temple, the figure they had seen waited. Patient, calculating, ready to challenge them in ways they could not yet imagine. And the curse, though quieter for now, pulsed faintly, reminding them that its tests were far from over. The stars above shimmered, silent witnesses to the bond forming between human and princess, to the courage that had faced the heart of the star, and to the challenges yet to come. The journey ahead would demand everything of them: courage, trust, and the unbreakable connection that had begun to bloom in the face of ancient power. Kale and the princess walked forward, side by side, ready to face the trials that awaited. And far above, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving the city bathed in the soft glow of night, full of hope, fear, and endless possibilities. The palace was quiet, but the air was thick with anticipation. Kale stood beside the princess at the top of the central tower, the city below shimmering in the soft glow of the twin moons. The shadowed force they had glimpsed in the temple lingered at the edges of perception, its presence cold and insistent. Kale felt it tug at the energy around them, testing their courage, probing for weakness. "We have to face it," the princess said, her voice steady despite the tension. Her eyes, luminous and deep, met Kale's. "It will not stop until it tests us fully." Kale felt his chest tight and his pulse racing, but he forced himself to breathe steadily. The princess's presence anchored him, a constant warmth amid the cold threat. The shadow spoke, its voice like wind through crystal. "You are not ready. You do not belong. Step aside, human, or be consumed." "We are not afraid." The shadow recoiled slightly, testing again, and Kale felt the weight of its force pressing into his mind. Fear tried to seep in, but he forced it back, focusing entirely on the connection between him and the princess. "You must trust me," Kale said softly, his voice firm but calm. She nodded, closing her eyes for a brief moment. The energy around them pulsed in response, brightening, swirling with light and warmth. Kale felt the pull of the curse itself, not as a threat now, but as a force seeking balance, seeking resolution. The shadow struck again, faster this time, tendrils of dark energy lashing toward them. Kale caught the princess's hand, and they stepped together into the pulse, letting the light of their combined courage meet the darkness. The energy flared, bright as the twin suns, and for a heartbeat, Kale felt the weight of countless generations, the fears, the hopes, the destinies of those bound by the curse. "You can do this," the princess whispered. "We can do this." Together. Kale's heart pounded, but he held fast. He looked at the princess, saw her eyes burning with determination and hope, and felt his own resolve strengthen. "Now," she said, voice strong, "we anchor it together." The light from the heart of the star flared brighter than ever, pushing back the shadows completely. Kale felt the cold of the shadowed force melt into warmth, its hostility replaced by a quiet resistance that slowly faded. And then, with a sound like a sigh of relief, the energy settled. The curse, the shadows, and the temple itself hummed with balance. Kale and the princess stood together, their hands still linked, breathing in unison. The princess let out a soft laugh, a sound that carried relief, wonder, and joy all at once. "It is done," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "The curse, it is quiet. The shadows, they are gone, for now. Together." That is what the curse sought all along, a heart willing to face the unknown. The princess stepped closer, her hand brushing his cheek lightly. "Kale," she said softly, "I was trapped for centuries, not just by the curse, but by fear. Fear of failing, fear of being bound by destiny alone. You help me see that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. And you help me see that connection matters, that trust can be stronger than any force, even a curse older than the stars. Partners, he agreed. For a long moment they simply stood together, hands clasped, hearts aligned. The temple pulsed gently around them, calm and serene, as if acknowledging the harmony they had restored. The shadows were gone, the curse quiet, and the palace itself seemed to breathe in relief. But even in that calm, Kale could feel a whisper of caution. Somewhere beyond the stars, other forces waited, challenges unseen yet inevitable. Yet he also knew something profound. Whatever came, they would face it together. The princess led him to the balcony overlooking the floating city. Below, the bridges glimmered, the towers shone softly, and the citizens moved as if the air itself carried a new sense of hope. Kale realized that their journey had not only changed the course of the curse, but had also restored balance to this world, even if only temporarily. She turned to him, her hair catching the glow of the twin moons. "Kale," she said, voice quiet but certain, "there is something I must tell you. The visions, they showed me glimpses of the future. A future where you and I, where we are bound not just by this curse, but by choice, by connection. You will leave your world behind, and I will leave mine. And together we will face whatever comes next. Whatever it takes, wherever it leads, I am with you." Together they had faced the curse, the shadows, and the heart of the star itself. They had overcome fear, forged trust, and discovered courage that neither had known alone. And now, for the first time, they could look to the future with clarity. The city below was calm, yet alive with energy. Kale and the princess descended to the streets, moving among the citizens, feeling the pulse of life and the warmth of gratitude. People paused to look at them, not with fear, but with recognition, sensing the bond that had healed and protected their world. Kale reached out, touching the hand of the princess gently. "We've changed things," he said softly. "Not just for us, but for everyone here." Kale and the princess stood side by side, feeling the calm after the storm, the quiet triumph of trust and courage. The curse had been silenced, the shadows dispersed, and yet they knew the journey was far from over. Challenges would come, new forces would rise, and the balance of this world would always require vigilance. But in that moment, Kale and the princess allowed themselves a rare pause, a moment of joy, of connection, of love and understanding forged through trials and triumphs. "Kale," the princess whispered, "whatever comes next, promise me one thing. That no fear, no curse, no shadow will ever separate us. Together we are stronger than any force in the stars." The twin moons shone like sentinels in the night sky, and Kale felt a deep certainty. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, bound by choice, courage, and the unbreakable connection that had begun in the frozen gaze of a princess who had once feared what she could not control. Somewhere far beyond, the stars shimmered, witnessing their triumph, their trust, and the beginning of a future forged not by prophecy alone, but by the hearts and courage of two beings from different worlds who had chosen to stand together. And in that choice, they found freedom, hope, and a love that could survive even the oldest curse. The adventure had ended, for now, but the story of Kale and the princess, their bond, and the worlds they would face together had only just begun.